Terrific. And I just want to thank everyone again for being here. And it's also a chance to say to PSC members who are on, really, I salute you. I mean, it's been an incredibly difficult year, and people have struggled with incredible obstacles, academic and political and health obstacles. And it's been really such a trying year. And I really salute everybody who is trying to make this university work. We're here because spring semester classes start this week. And at the last minute, apparently to save money, some CUNY colleges have directed department chairs, the academic department chairs, to raise the minimum number needed to maintain a course. That is that departments sometimes will cancel a course, for instance, if it has no students enrolled. But at several colleges, in this critical moment, when in fact what they should be doing is reducing the minimum number needed in a course, what they've done is raise the minimum so that a course will be canceled with a fairly high enrollment, 75%, 80% even, we've heard at some campuses. That's exactly the opposite of what CUNY should be doing in this crisis for two reasons. One is that our students are under tremendous pressure. The communities they're from have almost uniformly been the communities hardest hit by the ravages of COVID, both the disease and the job loss and loss of income that has followed. So I'm not surprised that some students are finding it difficult to enroll. But the second reason is that almost all the classes are still online, and all the research shows that online classes need to be smaller, not larger, but smaller than an in-person class if students are going to have any chance of being connected and succeed. So in this moment, even if there is a decline in enrollment, which there is at some colleges, what the colleges should be doing is relaxing, reducing those minima so that more courses can run and our students have a chance to take those courses and graduate. And reducing the number really hurts the academic integrity of a department when certain critical courses can't run, when the breadth of a major isn't there, and it also imperils jobs of our members. If courses don't run, and if those courses were being taught or planned to be taught by adjunct faculty who are paid by the course, and that course is canceled, that adjunct faculty might lose his job or her job. Some adjunct faculty stand in peril of losing their health insurance. We have already seen enough of that at CUNY. We saw that last spring. It is unconscionable that people would lose their jobs in this crisis because CUNY is tightening the restrictions and the minima needed to run a course. So the first thing we're calling on CUNY to do, and all of our supporters to join in that call, is to call on CUNY colleges to relax the course minimums. Some colleges, one is Lehman, I think there are others, have in fact protected courses and protected students. That's the right thing to do. And that should be happening everywhere at CUNY. I mean, we hope we're coming towards the place where we can see an end of this pandemic. This is the time to preserve what our students need and to preserve the ability of students to graduate. You'll be hearing shortly from a student who is one semester away from graduation and is being blocked, and you'll hear more about that. So, you know, it's worth asking why some courses are under enrolled. One reason, as we've said, is that enrollment numbers at many CUNY colleges, but certainly not all, are down because of the terrible strains of the pandemic. Our students, many of them are frontline workers, they're essential workers, they are supporting families, some family members have lost jobs, students are under tremendous pressure. The online learning is very difficult, especially if a student doesn't have tremendous resources to electronic support, very difficult. So there are reasons for under-enrollment, but one really inexcusable reason is that at some colleges, students are being blocked from re-enrolling because they owe small amounts of money from last semester in their bursars bills. And we say, as the PSC, if the federal government can impose a moratorium on all federal student loan payments, why can't CUNY impose a moratorium on bursars holds to prevent a student from re-enrolling because that student owes $100, $200, and therefore blocking that student's progress is completely outrageous. Or to have a student so caught up in the bureaucratic problems that are exacerbated by the online situation, and have that student not able to re-enroll is completely unacceptable. Those bursars holds should be lifted. They should be lifted now, and students should be able to re-enroll for the spring. CUNY's never been needed more than now. Students want to return to school to rebuild their lives, support their families, and at that time to find that you can't re-enroll because you owe a small amount on your bursars bill is really outrageous. It's damaging. It sends a terrible message to our students. CUNY should not be putting obstacles in the path of our students. They're already pretty heroic to be at CUNY at all, especially in this pandemic, and then to have an obstacle in their paths is just unforgivable. And we're also seeing the pressure of the current situation and the squeeze on classes. It's playing out in pressure on professional staff as well as faculty. Sometimes the enrollment staff are being asked to take on 2 jobs to make up for lack of enrollment. That's not fair. What needs to be done is bursars holds should be lifted. And there is a solution, and that's the last thing I want to say, and you'll hear more about this from others later. CUNY was just allocated $455 million in federal relief funds. More than 350 million of that may be used for institutional needs. The first allocation came last year in the CARES Act. That was $251 million. Despite that money, despite an explicit provision in the law saying that institutions of higher education that receive CARES Act money should keep employees on payroll, CUNY laid off 2,900 adjuncts. The union fought back. We've managed to get rehired about 1,000 of those adjuncts, but that's still terrible loss. It's a terrible failure to use those funds in the way they should be. So now there's even more funding in this second relief bill. CUNY must use those funds, must use them, must be transparent about every dollar spent. I know many of the dollars went directly in student aid, which is terrific, but there should be a moratorium on bursars bills. There should be more student aid delivered, and there should be no classes canceled with minimums being raised. And in fact, minimums should be reduced. So we are here together to call on CUNY management. We've seen some changes even this week. Some colleges apparently have been responsive to this call, and you'll hear more about that. But CUNY Chancellor, CUNY Board of Trustees, you have a precious institution in your hands. You have $455 million of new money and still money from the first CARES Act. Use that to support our students, send them the message that we value them, that we're going to be there for them, lift their bursars holds, keep those classes running, and take the pressure off department chairs to cancel classes. We want to teach and we want to serve our students. So that's what I would like to start us off by saying, and I'm very happy to turn over to the next speaker. And our next speaker, Fran, will be, can you just remind me who's going to speak next?
We've got George Sanchez coming up
Great,
next.
terrific. So I'm really happy to introduce George Sanchez, who is a professor, and he's been a department chair of theater and creative arts at performing arts at the College of Staten Island, and he's our union leader at the College of Staten Island. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Barbara, and good morning to everybody. I'm no longer department chair, but I'm still the chapter chair. I was department chair for 12 years. Thank you, Barbara, and I'm just going to echo everything Barbara said, and I'm going to begin by, first of all, thanking every member who's on this call. There's over 400 people, over 450 people. It's great. Shows you what kind of a crisis we're dealing with. I want to thank all our members, faculty and staff, for all you're doing and for your commitment to provide the best possible education for all our students facing the incredible challenges that we're facing. This affects everyone. I'll begin by saying that the faculty senate at the College of Staten Island, where I am, we had a vote of no confidence that we passed in December because our administration was not responding to many pleas of trying to negotiate in good faith to get them to understand why we were concerned with what's happened to all the campuses in this pandemic. So just real quickly, even last semester, we really made an issue around the increasing of class sizes and the problem it had on the actual education students were receiving, and the administration refused to negotiate anything. They just stuck to their plan. We're going to increase class sizes. as Barbara mentioned, it's double whammy now because it's increasing class sizes and raising the minimum. So I know that we had a class that only had 2 students in our dance department, that those 2 students really needed it. They wanted it. They're in school. They're going to pay. And our campus was going to cancel the section because it was too few. And we said no. I actually don't know what happened. As of yesterday, it was still possible that we were going to be able to run it, but we're putting up a fight. Why? Because as Barbara has said, the money's there. No one should be getting cut. None of these classes should be getting cut. This is the time to do something we haven't done. The pandemic presented us with an opportunity to look at things differently, and how do we manage success and meaningfulness and effective learning with the challenges that we have. Bursar holes. Our college has approximately 1,000, give or take 500. We have a lot of bursar holes, and the college is not relinquished. This moratorium that Barbara's mentioning is really, really important, because our college is suffering a big increase or a decrease in enrollment. We're seeing really low enrollment this semester. And part of the reason is because of the education students are getting. I had many students last semester in my courses complaining to me of being in courses that were over 100 students on a Zoom call. I had students tell me that when I went to the administration, they pretended like, oh, no, they're just making that up. It's unbelievable, which leads me to the transparency issue. I had chairs calling me when you're going to talk to Paul Narkunis very soon from John Jay, who's been really great at giving us these information on these numbers. When Barbara talks about that the federal money is there, why are we talking about this? Doesn't make sense. Part of the reason is all the non-transparency, how administrations are holding on to this information. Chairs did not know this information. Chairs were complying with demands even though they didn't want to, although now they're really starting to stand and hold the line for us. But it's very important that even the transparency issue, which is why we did a vote of no confidence at our college, is a real issue. Why don't we have access to this information? Why isn't it coming from the administration directly? Why do we have to get it from a professor at John Jay or from Barbara at the PSC? Why doesn't the administration with these campuses give everyone the information? So I'll just close by saying that, what was I saying? Oh yeah, it's about raising the minimums or increasing class sizes, really important. Let's get rid of let's get moratorium on the bursar holes, because that's what we really need. And let's ask for more transparency at every single campus. Again, thank you very much. I know there's other people that have much more incredible information. It's great to be here. It's great to see so many people on this call, and I'll turn it back over to you, Fran.
Great. I'll just thank you, George, so much. Great to hear from you. Just introduce a few of the other people on the screen. We've been joined by Council Member Inez Barron, who is the chair of the City Council Committee on Higher Education. We're also joined by Andrea Vasquez, who's the first vice president of the PSC, by Nivedita Majumdar, who's secretary of PSC, Sharon Persinger, who's the treasurer, and in a minute you'll hear from Tyrese, and then Tyrese Spruill, and then we've also been joined by Emmanuel Ness, who's a department chair at Brooklyn College, and Paul Narkunis, who is a professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And you've been hearing from Fran Clark, our communications director, and you'll soon hear from Tiffany Brown, member of our staff also. And we're delighted to have them here. And before I turn it over to Tyrese, I want to say that, and I think George pointed to this, and perhaps people in the chat also, an attack on students at Cuny, something that puts a block in their paths at a time when students, low-income students and students of color, have borne the brunt of this pandemic in an extraordinary way, and that the pandemic has exposed deep racist inequities, deep systemic problems, racist problems in our society, to any activity, any action by Cuny that imperils students' education and makes it more difficult for them is almost necessarily going to hit Black and brown students harder, because many of them are in a more vulnerable position. And Cuny must stand for anti-racism. It must be an anti-racist intellectual space, not just workforce training, but an intellectual space for people of color, for Black and brown New Yorkers. And this is a chance to stand up and be that. And we are afraid that Cuny is missing that chance. We're calling on Cuny to do that. So I think it's very important for us to hear from Tyrese Spruill, and we're really proud and pleased that you've joined us, Tyrese, to talk about your struggles to enroll this coming semester. And remember to unmute, Tyrese, and join us.
Yes. Hi. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Barbara, for the floor. My name is Tyrese Sproul. I am a senior in Hunter College right now, running for with my major being creative writing. And this was supposed to be my last semester in Hunter College, but now it seems that that's been extended simply due to a bursar hold. The bursar hold that I've currently had on my um, account literally during the past fall semester, and that I've only been able to now figure out why I have the hold simply because of miscommunication. And I am taking online classes. I've been taking online classes since the move to online learning since last year. And while it has been more difficult for me to both keep up my grades and at the same time be aware of what I need within certain for both financial aid and my classes, simply due to having spotty internet and having to keep everything up on one computer, which I share amongst my household of five. The bigger problem is that the lack of communication from both the bursar's office and the financial aid office has necessarily gave me the inability to be is giving me this new status where I am stuck in limbo in terms of not being able to put in my classes because of the bursar hold, and being unable to know whether my financial aid has went through or not, simply because simply because of a piece of paperwork that, while has been put through the Cuny document upload process, which I am completely new to because I did not did not have to do this previously, during my time during online classes last year, nor did I ever had to do this back when I first started at Hunter. Even when I used to visit in person. But it was this simple a verification worksheet that became a bigger problem in terms of me not knowing what I needed. And now that I've implemented this paperwork twice, I have not received any sort of information explaining that it has been received, or that it's being looked over, or that anything is changing for my current predicament. And this is something completely new to me, because I've had
Yeah.
missing paperwork before, but nothing that came to the point where I couldn't just either hand it in person, or have it be directly emailed to the person who needs it, in order to make sure that either my financial aid went through, or that bursar knew that I was covered.
Great.
And this became a bigger and this was one of my biggest problems, and I
Thank you.
don't have any other difference.
That's great, Tyrese. Thank you so much. And I hope everyone heard. I don't know if Tyrese got to say he completed his associate's degree at LaGuardia Community College, right? And then transferred successfully to Hunter. He's
Yes.
He's one semester away from graduating, and he has a bursar's hold. That is crazy. We've got to find a way, not just for Tyrese, and Tyrese is on today, and I hope Hunter and others will jump to his aid and make sure he can enroll, but there are thousands of other students too who are being blocked in this way. So we have students being blocked, courses being canceled. Those two things are being put together in a terrible way, and they've both got to be lifted. We are really privileged to have as our next speaker. I know Council Member Barron, you weren't able to join right at the beginning. If you're ready to go next, great. If you're not, I can pass it back to you. But we're really honored to have with us a strong advocate for CUNY and an educator herself, Councilmember Inez Barron, Chair of the City Council Higher Ed Committee, who will join us. And I'll just mention, we have 500 people on this call working together. We can put this pressure together. CUNY administration, I hope you're hearing 500 people on this call, and I hope you change your position by the start of classes. Thank you. Councilmember Barron.
Thank you so much. First, I want to wish everyone Happy New Year and a healthy New Year. Hope everyone continues to follow all of the protocols that have been put before us so that we can continue to protect ourselves, our families, and our friends. To PSC, you know, I'm one of your strongest advocates. I appreciate the work that you do. I know how trying and taxing and demanding and how time consuming it is to work generally. And now specifically during this pandemic, to have all these other dimensions added to the fact that we need to provide assistance for our students as well as protect our staff and faculty so that they are not unduly burdened. So yes, we know that there is additional federal stimulus money coming, and we know that thankfully the CUNY system has been the recipient of several large foundation grants and pots of money which have been allocated to CUNY. Particularly, there were 2 colleges that have received designated amounts of money. I think it was discussed as a part of the Board of Trustees meeting yesterday. There is money. There has always been money. It's how, in fact, the system wants to designate how those funds will be spent. I'm not disclaiming or discounting rather, the fact that we are in an economic crisis, that I understand that as well. But when we weigh shortchanging students, putting burdens and barriers and hurdles and mountains in front of them, we're doing a great disservice to the individual student as well as to their families and our society, the larger society as a whole. We've got to find a way to be more collaborative and more respectful with all of the partners that are involved, with the administration being more transparent and more forthcoming, with CUNY being able to get information that they need in a timely fashion, and not just one way sending the information. It's got to be a level exchange. And when that level exchange happens, there's an awakening of ideas and an improvement of the understanding and a perspective that comes from the classroom that the administration may not be aware of. And that's why we get things that give us the results that we don't know or that we realize are not what we intended for those results to be. There had not been dialogue and exchange during the time to help shape how, in fact, we're moving forward. So we've just heard from Tyrese, and he talked about the insurmountable, incomprehensible challenges. Well, why is this happening? So we've got to find other ways of effective communication and dialogue and respect and input. There's often the talk about we're going to be involved, but if the input that you're giving is not valued and accepted and not in some way shaping what the product is that you come out with, then we're not working effectively and efficiently. So we need to make sure to find ways that will help students who are now faced with these burdens and bursar holes and the class cancellations. We need to find a way, oh my goodness, so sorry. We need to find a way to make sure that we don't unduly burden our students in that regard. And we need to make sure that what we're doing is effective so that a student is now having to extend their time in CUNY because of a class being canceled that they definitely need for the programs that they're in. And being in classes, and even though they're virtual, that are unseemly large, and now instructors and faculty members having to deal with the burden of responsibility of addressing the needs of all of these students. So there are a myriad of issues that we're facing, and until we come to a common understanding, sitting around one table and hearing from everyone, including the students, of course, hearing from everyone, we're going to be making baby steps forward and major steps back. But I stand with you in this regard, and I support you and invite you to reach out to my office at any time. And my email, well, you can send it to Miss Washington. She is my CUNY liaison, and her email is M as in Mary, Washington @council.nyc.gov. And we invite you to be aware of the hearings that we are planning moving forward. And there'll be one in February. It hasn't yet been confirmed, but we'll be in touch and we'll let you know. But thank you so much. Keep up the good work. Be encouraged, and the battle continues.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Councilmember Barron. That's fabulous. And as Councilmember Barron knows, the PSC has taken a strong stand that actually tuition should be free at CUNY. And we're working on that with a new proposal that will be launched very shortly, a major piece of legislation in Albany. That's our position. We're fighting for that. But until we have that, and while we're in this pandemic, lift the bursars holds. And I think the pressure is beginning to get through because some campuses are moving. So we'll turn it over. We have two more speakers. That's Paul Narkunis and then Manny Ness. And Paul is next. He's going to speak to us from John Jay College and about the money that CUNY has. CUNY does have money. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, thank you. I just want to reiterate everything that others have said, and in particular, I think we really need to seize on what Councilmember Barron has said, that the money is there, and that's why, as a John Jay College faculty member, it's just been, this pandemic has been revelatory for the toll it has taken on our students, and for how CUNY, amid these student struggles, has chosen to diminish student educational opportunities rather than consider creative ways to invest in them, as Councilmember Barron was suggesting. This decision from CUNY Central to cut under-enrolled classes is a short-sighted management decision driven by abstracting students and conceiving them only as tuition dollars, or more prosaically, we call it butts and seats, to ensure robust revenue streams. When enrollment numbers at John Jay for the semester appeared down almost 12% due to our students' twin traumas of relentless COVID and the challenges of online education, our administration required all general education courses with less than 15 enrolled students be canceled. In the English department, my department, 20 sections were canceled a week before school started. An additional 10 may be cut before Friday, the first day of the semester. This disruption to students is stupefying in light of the money available through the Coronavirus Relief and Remedy Appropriations Act, which I'm going to just quote from here on, the new stimulus. Under the new stimulus, John Jay is slated to receive $7.66 million to distribute to students in aid, and then an additional $19.97 million in institutional support that can be used, to quote the U.S. Department of Education's summary of the act, for, quote, defraying expenses associated with coronavirus, including lost revenue, reimbursement for expenses already incurred, technology costs associated with the transition to education, faculty and staff trainings, and payroll. As these canceled sections used to run pre-pandemic in the English department, their under-enrollment can be attributed to the effects of the pandemic and online learning for students, and could be a new stimulus recognized expense to, quote, make up the lost revenue. At the same time, the new stimulus allows institutions to take the institutional portion of the federal money to make additional financial aid grants to students, including, and I'm quoting again, for a student's outstanding balance, with students' written or electronic or affirmative consent. In other words, the new stimulus has written stipulations that would allow each campus to use federal money to allow students with bursar holds to enroll this semester. CUNY has willfully chosen not to help these students in need to continue their education despite its ostensible commitments to student retention and graduation. These actions are all the more egregious when weighing the institutional portion of the CARES Act money will now follow the less rigid stipulations of the new stimulus. CUNY Central has still not spent the majority of the institutional money of the CARES Act from the campuses, and only allocated $41 million out of the total $123 million it received for the federal government. John Jay, for example, has only received $2.68 of its $8.9 million from the federal government. The money is there, again, quote, Councilmember Barron, but instead CUNY will make students suffer with further displacement. Faculty members will be fired or reassigned to teach classes they have never taught before in a virtual environment a week before school begins, and run classes at full capacity or beyond, all in the name of fiscal discipline and I'm using CUNY language right now, maximizing student seat efficiency for their logic, regardless of the student's educational experience and hardship. And yet at John Jay, almost 700 students from my sources were kept from registering for classes this semester due to bursars hold. I learned yesterday that John Jay mercifully decided to waive the bursar hold, perhaps due to PSC pressure. But now students can't find available classes because all the sections have been cut. They are now requesting overtallies to enroll in classes already full at 30 to 36 students. How does such decision-making help students succeed? It obviously doesn't, as Teresa's story bears witness. It's really time to free the federal funds and stop defending CUNY. Our students really deserve better. Let's help them. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paul. Devastating. That is devastating. Maximizing seat efficiency. Where is maximizing and investing in students' hope and dreams and being creative in this moment? Even Congress was able to be creative enough to invest in higher education. The second stimulus bill has far more for higher education than the first one because we fought for it in Washington. That money now has to be spent in a way that benefits our students. So last we'll hear from Professor Manny Ness, who is chair of the political science department at Brooklyn College and is in the crosshairs of this dispute and taking a strong stand. Over to you, Manny.
Thanks, Barbara. Thank you, Councilwoman Barron and everyone else. I just would like to say that last Thursday, just a few days ago, we learned that the caps would be raised from 12 to 16 students on essential classes that students require for graduation in political science and so forth. And this has had not just devastating effects on students' ability to graduate, which is fairly obvious because these are electives as well as capstone classes, etc. We were told initially that 12 would be the minimum, and now we have 16. We as a department, as well as Brooklyn College faculty as a whole, had emergency meetings, and we decided that we will not in any way change the minimum, and we will keep the requisite number of students in each of those classes. But even as this is happening, we are engaging, we're getting constant pressure from the administration to cut classes. One of the big problems, I think, is that CUNY, Brooklyn College, et cetera, exist as a sort of set of silos in which not only are administrators not speaking to faculty or the union, but administrators may not even be speaking to administrators. I got this message from actually one of my own union members who's a HEO. So we are in a position right now in which we do not know precisely what the minimum will be. We don't know whether classes will be cut, but we do have academic freedom. We do have the right as departments and chairs to decide how many students should be in each class for pedagogic reasons. And you know, primarily, we are very, very concerned with the issue of adjuncts. If one adjunct is teaching 35 students in one class and 8 or 12 or 15 in another class, the 15 class or 12 class will be cut. That's absurd. You know, typically classes may have 20, 25 students. If you average it out, it's about the same. So not only are we hurting students by eliminating classes, we're devastating adjunct faculty who suffer the brunt of this. They lose health insurance, they lose needed money, and the entire department and the entire system comes tumbling down on people's students as well as adjunct faculty. So we are holding the line and working very closely with our union chapter, as well as the union, in ensuring that we have our classes maintained at the same number, and that the university and the college be reasonable about these issues. There's a degree to which there's a form of rapaciousness that the administration is engaged in terms of their actions. They talk sweet talk about anti-racism and diversity, but when it comes down to the brass tacks, when we have to run classes, we're told that, oh, by the way, your class that you were scheduled to have that's running pretty well, or you thought was running well, is being canceled. And I think that these kind of questions related to accounting and so forth, counting heads or counting seats in this case, really is deleterious to our students, and we need to fight back. In this case, it's really doing the right thing for our students. It's doing the right thing for our city, and making sure that adjuncts are kept whole as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manny. And even though Manny spoke quietly, what he's doing is a very loud act of leadership, I would say, leadership. And I believe all the chairs who've been told at Brooklyn College to make these cancellations are standing up and saying, we won't do it. Chairs should never be put in that position. But since you have been, we applaud you for your courage in standing up and having the imagination to stand for students in this crisis. Yes, you do deserve a round of applause. And I know there's a large number of chairs at Brooklyn College and elsewhere who have taken the same stand. And it's moving and powerful, and it's got to spread, and the CUNY administration has to start doing the right thing. I will say some colleges have moved this week, but they all need to move. So with that, I'm going to open it up to Fran Clark, our communications director, and Tiffany Brown, working with Fran. Sometimes the press on the online calls, they send in their questions afterwards and they record the call. So we may not have the press calls and questions first. They may come in writing, but I'll turn it over to you, Fran, so we can go to members' calls as we deal with the press calls, perhaps in writing if they're coming in that way. So thanks, Fran. Thanks, Tiffany, and turn it over to you.
Okay. That's essentially what I wanted to say. We've heard from a number of TV networks and reporters asking for this recording, and we are excited about that. We've been collecting questions from the chat and from the Q&A function. There have been a number of repeat questions, and Tiffany is now going to come on and read some of those questions to Barbara, who will field them and spread them out to our panel. So thank you all.
Thanks, Fran. So Barbara, the first question we have is, do we have any numbers about how many students are being prevented from enrolling because of bursar holds? How does that compare with the decreased enrollment? Is this the case across the board for all CUNY colleges, including community colleges?
Great question. I have the same question myself, I have to say. And one of the things we want to call on the CUNY administration about right here and now in this call, in this video conference, is to make it public how many students are on bursar's holds. I'm going to turn it over in a minute. I think we might have some specific information from George and maybe Paul and Manny about their campuses, but we do not have full information about how many students are on holds. I would also like to know what amount they're on hold for. I understand that at some places there has been a provision that if your hold is less than a certain amount, then you can re-enroll. And just for folks who aren't totally clear, a bursar's hold is a block on re-enrolling as a student for students who owe money at the bursar's office, which would typically be on tuition. So we don't have the number. We should have the number. We know that it exists at many colleges, but I think, Tiffany, the other part of the question was how much at each college. Precisely what we need to know and what all of us should be demanding. I think it'd be great if CUNY faculty and staff and students on this call call your president's office, right to the president's office, and ask for that information. But I turn it over to see if George or Paul or Manny want to say anything about numbers. George.
Yeah, Barbara, thank you for that. So first of all, yes, about calling the presidents and provosts. Everybody should send an email, make a call. Everyone at every campus should do that today. It's really, really important. Second of all, we want the colleges to be transparent about everything. All the things that Paul mentioned in the budget were so important. You see the response in the chat. It's very dismaying that we have the money, but we're not getting the information. Along with that, release the numbers. We're not asking for the names, okay? I understand that, but we can get numbers, and that's very important. At our campus, it's approximately 1,000 that I know of, but it could be more than that. I've already reached out to people to get a better number, but I think that's really, really important. And then last, real quick, because I've seen it on the chat, this issue affects everyone. So it affects adjuncts, CLTs, HEOs, it affects the college community in total. The union is highly aware of this, and something that we repeat over and over with our administrations. This is not a faculty issue. This is a college-wide issue, and we want everyone to be taken seriously with respect, and we are begging for it to be treated with integrity and to be treated with respect. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Paul or Manny, anything to add? Remember to unmute. Unmute, Paul.
Okay, I'll just say, as I mentioned, there were 700 students that were on hold that were recently released at John Jay. This is just to give you a sense of the impact of the pandemic, though, and the way students are struggling. Usually we have no more than 300 a semester. So it really kind of it demonstrates the amplification of struggle that the students are having. And at John Jay, these holds have been for as little as $500, just to kind of give you a sense in the past. I don't know what it is right now. But I will say also, just my campus has been fairly good with transparency. So I think they should get the credit that they're due, as many of the people are actually our heroes who are actually working in the office with the VP of Finance.
Right. Thank you. Manny, anything to add?
Yeah, real briefly, we've had high enrollments in some classes. We're really enthusiastic and so forth over the last, I've been watching the class enrollments over the last month or so, or two. We all of a sudden we see the numbers drop and we wonder, why do those numbers drop from 18 to 12 or something like that? And it's patently obvious that these bursars holds are having the effect of just, basically kicking students out of their classes. And as Tyrese was pointing out earlier, they don't have the ability to graduate. They can't advance in their college careers and so forth. It's a very serious and dispiriting issue for all of us. It has not only academic effects, but also health effects on people. Some of our students are extreme, and I spoke to about 8 of them yesterday, are emotionally kind of not traumatized by the pandemic and by what's going on at Cuny, only to find that they don't even have a class anymore. I think that Cuny has to come up with a centralized plan rather than having various leaders, administrators, making their own decisions arbitrarily.
Yes.
It's outrageous that we have to deal with these things. I don't even think at Brooklyn College there's a central plan.
Yes, thank you, Manny. It's insane to be in this position. Tiffany, you want to take us to the next question?
Sure. What is the minimum number of students in a class for a class to run in the semester?
Okay, that varies by the kind of class and the school. Maybe I'll start with Manny on that. I think just to remind you from the start, part of what we are fighting against is that at some colleges, not only do they have a minimum, which should be reduced, but they're increasing that minimum right now. So Manny, you want to speak to that, and then maybe Paul?
Sure. I first want to say that we actually increase the number of students in our classes to try to play ball with the administration. But I would like to say also that there's a pedagogic reason to have some classes at lower enrollment for writing purposes, for understanding the field to a greater extent, and to have a class of 35 or more, 30, 35 or more is just unfeasible and not pedagogically sound whatsoever. You're not getting your college education in a class of 30 when it's supposed to be a specialized class in the field. So it could go down, to 12 or something like that, which is reasonable. And even if it's less than that, it's important that these classes run so that students have that experience. When you're in your last year of your college career, in your last semester, and you have to take a capstone class, if there are 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 students in that class, it should run. Otherwise, these students are going to go away. Our administration is telling us that we need to get our students graduated in 4 years. That's our goal. This is contrary completely to that objective because we're told, well, this class isn't going to run, and there isn't any ability to put those students in another class because the whole purpose of the class is to have a specific pedagogic experience. And so we do maintain caps on a number of classes, but they're very high relative to other schools, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah. I see Paul nodding and George's hand up. Paul and then George.
Yeah, just to pick up what Manny's saying, it's really, really important to consider the pedagogical value of class size. There's a logic behind this, and you can kind of see that by the very slogan that you frequently hear about how class size matters. And the wealthy institutions really exercise this. For example, when I taught at Princeton, I taught freshman English at Princeton, I had 12 students in my class. When I moved to John Jay, I had 28 to 30 students, and that is before moving to online. So it really shows that Princeton was making the priority of diminished class sizes because of the importance of having face-to-face or in the Zoom-to-Zoom interaction. And it's also kind of key to think about as because faculty during the pandemic are the face of the institution. We're the ones that are actually seeing the students. They're coming to us with all their problems because they don't know where else to go. They're told to go to a website, and that's not very satisfying. So they are going to faculty to ask for questions. And the very fact that faculty have, as Manny was saying, have tried to play ball to help the students and taken on more students and had over tallies. We had a terrible problem at John Jay with this. That actually diminishes the ability to give the face-to-face attention the students need and to be the face of the institution to give them the answers that they need because there's just so many students. So it's really important to kind of think about this in a larger context of how short-sighted this seat management strategy is.
Right. We'll go to George if you'd like quickly, and I want to see if Inez or Tyrese has anything they would like to add.
Real quick, thank you, Paul and Manny. Public education needs to be quality education. It's that simple. In terms of course caps in relation to Tiffany's question, course caps and course minimums are set independently by each college, so it varies greatly. But we're talking about a non-pandemic time. During a pandemic, everything needs to be reevaluated for the reasons of pedagogy and quality education. So all of these things need to be reduced for all the obvious reasons. What we haven't spoken is about the struggles that we're having in the classroom Zoom sessions. And so we need training, we need a lot of work there. So it is really paramount that every college understand we have to reduce it to increase the level of education the students are going to get. And lastly, these cuts are happening too late. So we found out only as of last Friday. You've heard from Manny and Paul both, but a week before the class, and now we're going to have cuts this week. It's not fair to the professor, which in most cases, these are adjuncts. Secondly, it's really unfair to the students. And so everything is happening way too late. As we see with the pandemic, no planning has been done by anyone at any level, and it's so infuriating. So I want to really echo and commend my colleagues on this call for being so forthright and so informative and to make us understand what crisis we are facing.
I wondered if Inez or Tyrese wanted to jump in.
Just to say, I support the comments and the observations that have been made. And certainly we understand that there is an emotional component to all that's going on. And yes, we are having students who are bearing the burden, psychological, physical, emotional, of what this pandemic has brought with it. And the inability to be in person, to be able to have the spiritual or the transitional transmission rather between someone in your space to support you through this is very, very important. So just imagine if all of those students who are now in these classes that have been expanded try to connect with an instructor who by the sheer numbers of students in their class can't afford that support, or counselors who are already overburdened. We're adding to that trauma that these students are experiencing. So we certainly need to make sure that the pandemic is not used as an excuse or even as a justifiable reason for increasing class sizes. And again, someone talked about the fact, well, yes, you're overloading some classes and constricting other classes, whereas you could level it out and have two sections of a class that are more equally distributed. And I just want to commend all of those who are standing up and challenging those edicts that are coming from on high, because they're not based on an assessment of individuals and people, but they're simply looking at numbers on a page. And we've got to commend those who understand that it's more than that and who are speaking up on behalf of making sure that students get the best that they are entitled to. And Tyrese, I'm a Hunter alum, so all the best to you. We look forward to being able to help you.
Great.
Thank you.
Tyrese, did you want to add anything?
Oh, well, mainly to ring true with what Inez and both Emmanuel have previously put in, that like this could be a very psychological and like heavy part for students, and also how it impacts us with our interactions with our professors. And this is, and like speaking on my own thing, the recent fall semester has taken a toll on my health, both both mentally and physically, because this and it essentially was a lot for me to handle, which led to me needing to take time away from my classes, which led to my grade point average dropping like considerably. And it and like being a student that's been in good academic standing throughout my time in LaGuardia and transferring that over to here, it is like it's only from certain professors that understand, that have been able to essentially help out and be understandable during this time. But it's clear that like we're not getting that much help from our own from our own college, and this is something that needs to be showcased more.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tyrese. And we will fight for you to be able to register again this semester and finish. It is cruel, and a system that is already cruel and designed to stymie people of color, to hurt the chances of the poor, to eject our students from school. They don't drop out, they're ejected. And a system that is already designed to do that, Cuny should offer an alternative instead of pretending that everything is great in this crisis. I think you've heard that today, and so I thank you, Tyrese. I think we have time for one more question. Tiffany, we are going to try to keep it more or less to the hour, so let's go to Tiffany for a last question.
Thank you, Barbara. To what extent are our voices heard or presented to the policymakers? How do we make ourselves heard?
Great, brilliant question. Well, we have one policymaker right here on the call with us, and she has stayed on throughout, and that is Councilmember Barron. And we'll get to some other things in a second. Part of what we're doing today is to make our voices heard. So listen, CUNY administration, I hope you're listening and you make a change by the start of the semester. So that's one thing. We're also, we're gonna hear from Andrea Vasquez in a minute about legislation we're introducing in Albany. The PSC is also, there's a caravan in the Bronx Schools Together, that maybe Sharon Persinger will say a word about, or someone else. And the PSC is also building our capacity to be able to take the action we need to in this crisis. And we are phone banking and calling every single member as part of our preparation to be as strong as we can and to be strong enough to have the capacity, if we need it, to call a strike. And we are doing that at the same time that we are engaging in actions like this, because today is an action. It's not just a press conference, it's an action, and also acting on a legislative scale, both at City Hall and in Albany and in the streets. So I'll start with Andrea to say something, and then Sharon or someone else if you want to talk about the Bronx.
Hi, thanks everyone. Great to have so many people here talking about this issue that is really important, not just in the moment, but important for the whole, it's indicative of the threat, the kind of threats that we're experiencing at Cuny. I don't think the university has ever been under such assault as it is right now. And in fact, this may be the tip of the iceberg. And that's why it's been so important that the union has been fighting for the past year, especially. We've been fending off all kinds of assaults, pushing back, protecting workers, protecting students, and fighting for the quality education that we've always fought for in this union. This is a result of the decades of disinvestment, right? It's not just these battles that we're fighting now. And even this money that we're talking about bringing in, whether it's state money, federal money, the CARES money that's being withheld, we don't want to get back to the usual disinvestment of Cuny. Right, we think that the billionaires need to be taxed in this state.
Yes.
There are 120 billionaires who have made probably close to $100 billion just during the COVID crisis. So we need all of those influxes of money at Cuny to get us out of this mess. And Cuny, unlike a lot of other agencies who've been cut and hurting so hard, we really see Cuny and the students at Cuny as the key to the future. It's the economic survival and health of this city and the country, in fact, is through higher education. So that's why this fight is so important. And so we fight on these fronts, but we also fight with that big vision. We don't want to get back to austerity, a normal austerity education. And New Deal for Cuny is a piece of legislation that will be introduced in Albany this month or in early February. And there will be actually a launch for this on February 5th at 10 a.m. So we invite all of you to attend that. I'll put the link in the chat. But this is really an ambitious, visionary piece of legislation that will begin to create the ways and the standards for a quality education at Cuny. And I won't go into the details. You can find it at the link, but I urge you all to attend that because these day-to-day fights are crucial, but that bigger vision that we believe in is really also imperative. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrea. Whoops. Sharon, did you want to say anything about the caravan in the Bronx? You're on mute, Sharon.
Yes, there was a posting earlier in the chat, and of course they just scroll by so quickly. Folks are gathering on Saturday at 11 a.m. The caravan in cars, bring your car covered with signs, join the caravan line. The caravan is going to travel to the neighborhoods where BCC and OSTOS presidents live. They both live in the Bronx, probably in very nice neighborhoods in the Bronx. They're gathering, it's around Lehman, right? So it's Bedford Park Boulevard between Paul and Goulden Avenue. And
folks are putting it in the chat.
Yeah, so Carol, if you could post some links to that, that would be good. I've gotten some Facebook things, but it's private. It's behind a group, so I'm not really able to post it. But Carol, if you can post it, that would be good. I'll see what I can copy and post.
Okay,
but I don't know if I'll be able to post a link.
That's great, and we'll put it on PSC website. And Inez, you wanted to jump in?
Yes, I just want to say to your membership, get involved, participate in as much as you can, and write your state legislature. Write your representative. Send them an email. If PSC prepares a concise letter, flood your representatives with submissions of that letter. The governor is only going to do what he gets pressured to do. Unfortunately, unfortunately, many of the state legislators bow to the wishes of the governor. The governor does not want to tax his 1% billionaire friends. And the legislature oftentimes succumbs to what the governor wants. Remember, they vote on the budget. The governor proposes it, they vote on it. So we have what we have because the legislators voted for it. They oftentimes do not want to assert their power for the usual political reasons. They fall out of favor, they don't get the other little crumbs that come off the table, and they want to make sure that they move up, so they don't want to stand up on behalf of the people. Flood your legislator, your representative, find out who they are, and believe me, the elected officials are swamped with lots of things. But when I get 100 emails and they're all the same, I said, okay, this is an issue. And these are people who are mobilized and who understand to bring that pressure. So get a letter prepared, 2 paragraphs, and everybody gets the same letter, and everybody's sending it to the representative. You can place a call to their office as well. But until they feel the pressure to stand up on your behalf, it's going to be a harder battle to fight.
Great, thank you. So I want to add one thing to that very important answer about what people can do, because that's always the key question. One thing I'd say is that the pressure we've brought this week with the press release and the work you're doing and the resistance at Brooklyn is already starting to work.
Right.
And I would add to what Councilmember Barron said, apply pressure close to home. We are strongest and most powerful with our immediate boss, and put pressure on the boss. And I agree with George. If everybody on this call, there were 500 on here, there are 400 still on after an hour, which is unbelievable. If each of you just sent an email to your college president's office and said, why do you not release the number of students on bursars holds? Why are you not dropping the bursars holds? And let every single class run and produce for me where exactly you have spent the money from the 2 federal infusions. How is that helping us at our college? Write that, call your college president, tell your department chair to do that, and we can build that pressure internally, because I think we're beginning to shift this one obstacle, but there are others in our paths, and I agree with those. Others who've said, and Andrea, we have to be out fighting every day, unfortunately. I just see if Nivedita Majumdar wanted to say something, and then we'll close us out. Nivedita?
Sure, thanks, Barbara. Just wanted to thank you, everyone, Councilperson Barron, for your consistent support, and for all of us here. This is unthinkably egregious what's going on. At a time of pandemic, our students who are bravely making this commitment during normal times, that is compounded so much because these are the communities that are facing the most hardship economically, health-wise, in every way. Paul talked about teaching at Princeton, 12 students. I think that pretty much captures it. I bet Princeton's not canceling classes, but
Right.
We are. And our students are the ones who need the classes the most at this time. So let's make sure that CUNY hears us, that at a time when they need the most, an administration which always talks about supporting students, the rhetoric of student support, make it real. This is very basic and this can be done. Make it real, do it. So
Right.
Thank you, everyone, and let's keep the pressure going.
Great. This is CUNY's chance. Stand up, make it real. So I want to thank everyone who has been writing in the chat. Everyone, I see there are a couple of students on this call who have bursars holds. We have recorded the call. I want to thank every person who spoke today, Councilmember Barron, Tyrese Spruill, Manny Ness, Paul Narkunis, George Sanchez, Andrea Vasquez, Nivedita Majumdar, Sharon Persinger, our staff who put this together. Very short notice. We decided to do this yesterday because we saw that CUNY wasn't moving, and here you are. Fantastic that you are on. Let's push this through. We have the imagination to understand how CUNY could be an incredible force in this moment, could do what our students need, could get out of this stupidity and the racism of talking about seat management in the crisis of a century. Let's call for another response. It's right within our grasp, and Cuny, it's time to do it. So thank you, everyone. Get active in your union chapter, call your chapter chair and find out how you can be active, and join us at our next PSC event. It's really great to see you. Thank you, panelists. Thank you all. We'll keep fighting. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Numbers are going.
They're going down.
We'll
Thank
see
you, Tyrese.
again. Yeah, thanks,
Yes.
Tyrese. That
It's
was great.
wonderful.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Best of
Oh,
luck to you. We're
sure.
going to be there fighting for you.
Yeah.
We'll
Great
wish you
job
well.
today.
How many days
Thank
do we
you.
have?
Yeah, how many days do you have to register? Let's see if we can do it.
Yeah. Can't wait to see what happens.
Great. Okay, we'll work on it. Thank you.
See ya.
Take
Okay,
care.
take care. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I'm ending it
Okay.
now.